and UWP and the conference and all the organizers for having me. It's a pleasure to be here. They put on a great conference, so I'd like to take this opportunity to talk to you about our project at the Akron mine this past year that we completed. Hear me now? Okay. So, this is going to be, go ahead. Give you a little background on the project location. For those of you familiar, the project is located on the west side of Monarch Pass, about 35 miles east of Gunnison, Colorado. Go ahead. In the headwaters of the Tomichi Creek watershed, which then flows into the upper Gunnison. A little bit zoomed in version of the site. Again, if you're familiar with Highway 50 flowing here, we have Monarch ski area, so as the bird flies, the Akron mine is not too far over the divide from Monarch ski area. It's about 10 miles up Forest Service Road 888 and adjacent to the town of White Pine, Colorado. And then it's within the boundaries of the Grand Mesa, Uncompahgre, and Gunnison, or the GMUG National Forest. So some site background. The mine was constructed in 1901. It was associated with a flotation mill on site. And you're going to see this photo again, but just to kind of orient you to the site. This is a before photo of the north pile here. Go ahead. And the site's divided into 5 primary areas. And we're going to focus just this talk on the north pile, the waste rock pile, and the associated tailings pile. And with this site, our primary threats were exposures to lead, zinc, cadmium, copper, other heavy metals. And this is kind of some of the the lead tailings we were dealing with, and it has the consistency of about like cake. You could cut it with a knife almost. And what we were doing was we were able to prioritize and characterize which areas of tailings and waste rock were contributing more heavier metals by having an X-ray fluorescent meter in the field, so we could prioritize which had higher quantities of those metals. And our main, like I said, main threats were threats to sources of surface and groundwater, and go ahead. Possibility of mass slope failure, and this was performed by a USGS study before the engineering evaluation and cost analyses was done in 2008, and showed that some of these really steep slopes you guys will see had the possibility of falling into Tomichi Creek. And then off-site migration of these materials through those surface and groundwater pathways, as well as through the air and mobilization of OHV vehicles. And then direct contact to humans and animals. This was a really big site, like a lot of other abandoned mine sites, where you have a lot of people driving OHV vehicles on the tailings, kind of mobilizing them into the air, so we had those threats to the local community. We began involvement in the project in 2015 when we were able to secure about $250,000 in National Forest Foundation funding to assist the Forest Service in beginning work a season early at the Akron mine. And then the Forest Service then allocated money to Trout Unlimited to help manage the continued construction of the project in 2016. And this work was completed under CERCLA as a non-time critical removal action. And as I mentioned before, an engineering evaluation and cost analyses helped drive the work in 2008 and kind of plan the roadmap for the site. RMC Consultants was hired as the contractor. They were already on site doing south pile work, and we had them as our north pile contractor for work in 2015 and 2016. And again, like I said, mass slope failure is kind of a possibility here. This is the elephant in the room we were dealing with, is pre-project conditions, and these mine waste piles range from about 40 to 60 foot height and elevation, ran for 1,100 feet along Tomichi Creek, so we didn't really have an accessible floodplain throughout the whole reach. Again, looking downslope, again, the river left, we had no floodplain for the whole entire reach, and this was a mixture of waste rock and tailings throughout. And the real goal for this project was to kind of minimize this big non-point source pollution, get it consolidated into 2 repositories that I'll talk about here in a little bit, and then create a 60 to 80 foot clean floodplain along that 1,100 foot of Tomichi Creek. And just to kind of start, this project recently was awarded the Forest Service Rocky Mountain Region's Honor Award for sustaining our nation's forests and grasslands. So A lot of our project partners are really happy with the result of this. It was a really big collaborative effort. Like, I mean, a lot of themes people are talking about today is collaboration, and without the support of all our partners, this project wouldn't have been able to happen. Some basic costs. These are just construction alone, not including any project management oversight. We were looking at $190,000 for phase 1 construction, $272 for phase 2, for a total of about $462 just for construction alone for the project on the north pile. The big main goal was consolidating about 127,000 cubic yards of mine waste and mine tailings to 2 large repositories, repositories A and B. And like I said, prioritizing the highly contaminated material was a big part of the project. 40,000 yards of that highly contaminated material was put into 2 repositories, A and B, while the remaining 87,000 yards was kind of graded on top of that to a 4.5 to 1 slope, allowing us that accessible floodplain that I was previously talking about. And that floodplain development, you know, throwing around that 60 to 80 foot width, and that was based on 100 to 500 year flood intervals that were done in that EGA and the subsequent 30% design that we went into the field with. And to kind of help bolster the toe of that repository, we created about 1,100 foot of a rock toe at the base of the repository to help stabilize it, protect it from maybe overbanked really big events, and kind of act as our line of demarcation for the repositories. We transplanted over 150 willow bulb transplants, and what I mean by that is taking the whole excavator bucket and digging up the entire living willow. So I was able to kind of go down and flag 150 of these in the site, and the contractor would walk down and pick them up and put them in individual locations along the floodplain, and this helps with immediate stability in your floodplain as well as root development and not having to wait for your willow cuttings to develop over several years. So this is just immediate willow stability. 6 rock or log sills were installed along the floodplain for that 1,100 feet to help stabilize that unconsolidated fresh material we just put down. And then there was a reconnection part of this project too. We had a really big culvert that used to actually be the boiler stack on site. That was where the Forest Service road was going along, so we did have a little bit of fish passage issue there. So after photos, we were able to remove that culvert, reroute the road, put a bottomless culvert in, and then there's actually a cross vein in here you can't really see right about right here to help us maintain and hold that grade where the culvert used to be, and then provide a fish habitat feature as well. We rerouted the Akron Adit flow, so we have a perennially flowing adit here on site as well. And we created an actual channel for it to route it down into Tomichi Creek. And the water quality of the Akron Adit is actually pretty good because of the underlying strata that we have here. And what we wanted to do in the wake of Gold King was give us a clean path for the Akron Adit to flow. So we weren't going to mobilize a bunch of tailings down into Tomichi Creek in the event of a blowout. So we had a clean route in between our 2 repositories, and it was on clean material with the channel set in. So this is a really big part of the project. After completion, we planted 196 riparian plugs to give us some species diversity along the floodplain. And then 13 acres of seed was applied in a combination with biosol, 600 yards of locally sourced manure from the watershed, the Cross and Bar Ranch, and then 200 yards of compost. This is an as-built drawing. As I mentioned, we had repository B here. It was kind of divided into 4 cells, you can't really see, and then repository A, and then you can see the Akron Adit channel comes here down into Tomichi Creek. So again, we're not going to be taking any contaminated material with us in the event of a blowout. It actually used to go up above here in a ditch that we removed and then routed down here. So, and then here's our rock line toe and our floodplain. So we have our before photo you guys already saw, and then our after photo. This is an aerial drone that we flew in September right after completion of the project. Again, our Akron Adit channel coming down here between repositories A, repositories B. Here's our rock line toe at the base of the repository. And then you can see this pretty concentric floodplain that we have along this whole reach along the north pile that we were able to create. The reroute process I mentioned for the Adit, it was kind of a parting of the seas, so to speak, in the beginning. And you can reference the road here as the consistent point between the two photos, routing it down between the two. This is during construction in 2015, right after we turned the water down slope. And then here's afterwards, this past October, after we had our vegetation come up about 6 weeks after project completion. Woody material in the floodplain, this is kind of big for us. What we do is we set our grade for the floodplain, come in with locally sourced material. We had a kind of an unlimited supply of lodgepole on site. I'd have the contractor scatter these about, track over it with an excavator, give us our roughness, help lock in that unconsolidated material. And then we'd come back in afterwards and kind of mess it all up with the bucket. We would knuckle it in and kind of do a hummocking technique. And what this would do is kind of create little pockets of water in micro-communities. So it would help give us moisture for the vegetation that we just put in, as well as kind of help dissipate our flood flows. Whenever we get overbank flows, it helps slow those velocities and as opposed to like a flat floodplain that you'd normally see. And then you can see that our willows that are kind of every 5 to 10 feet are helping lock everything in. I mentioned rock in wood sills that we were using. And what we would do is we'd come in and this would help the floodplain from unraveling during overbank events. And we place these periodically along the floodplain, and we'd come in and dig an excavation about a bucket's width, 6 to 8 feet back into the floodplain. And we put large rock, which we were able to harvest on site, about 3 to 6 foot boulders. And sometimes we put trees out to kind of break up the monotonous riffles that we had throughout the reach to kind of give us some habitat, break up that flow. Set that back at our floodplain grade, backfill it, and then transplant some willows for immediate root stability so those roots will grow in between all the logs and the rock and help lock everything in. Another example, kind of a big thing too, is making sure we set our first rock at the bank full elevation that we're getting, and then kind of stacking those rocks up as we go back at that elevation of the floodplain. And we did add some other lodge holes in here, and then backfill on top of it. So again, these are placed periodically through the floodplain. This one in particular is on a bend. So if that did jump the bend, we have a stabilization or a sill structure there. So some before and after photos. Like I mentioned, the elephant in the room before here, before we started construction, again, 40 to 60 foot tall line waste piles. This is after we buttoned up in 2015, after the first phase of North Pile work. And then after construction, 6 weeks after construction this October. And if you kind of look closely, you can see some green up here. We had vegetation about 6 inches 6 weeks after after demobilizing from the site. So we had really good veg growth across the site. Again, looking down, this is on the roadside, looking down Tomichi Creek. This is before, after we demobilized in 2015. And one thing to point out, we were able to do repository A in 2015 and then finish the site repository B and all other final grading in 2016. This is getting the site all nice and pretty and graded before we roughed it all up. And then this is right after construction. And then this is 6 weeks after. So if you could go back to that other photo, go back one, and then go back again. So again, we had that really good vegetation just 6 weeks after project completion. So we were really happy with what we had in that amount of time, and just looking forward to just getting everything greened up for this year as well. So some future steps, operation and maintenance, obviously for a site of this size. We're going to do some weed mitigation this year. We've had development of oxeye daisies, kind of encroaching from the road that we're going to have to deal with, as well as some other invasives. And then do some more willow cutting and planting where we might need some on the bank. Vegetation monitoring and any reseeding if necessary if some sites aren't coming back as strong as others. DRMS is going to hopefully install a flume out there to help us monitor the fluctuations in that adit flow right above that channel that we put in. And then some continual post-project monitoring will take place this year. We will do some water quality monitoring. We will do some fish shocking. So we were able to duplicate a fish shocking study that was done in 2014, evaluate taking out that culvert, evaluate the improvement of getting that mine waste up out of that floodplain and kind of continually loading into the creek. And photo points, and then kind of continually doing some veg surveys and veg monitoring along the site. So I'd like to open up to any questions or comments, and thank you guys again for having me.
In that reestablishment period, weeks or whatever, did you have regular rain, normal rain?
It was probably pretty normal. That air. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. So the question was, for that 6 weeks post project completion, what was our precipitation like during that time? And White Pine, that's kind of its own little rain cell. They get a lot of snow in the summer on that west side of Monarch Pass, and they do get a lot of summer thunderstorms, but I don't think it was anything abnormal. We didn't have significant erosion or anything. It was just kind of normal precipitation. I'd say average.
Who did you stabilize the waste before you started
We did do BMPs, but we kind of picked away at it very slowly. We knocked back those slopes. We did have, silt fences in the bottom. We had wattles that we were using throughout to kind of minimize the amount of material that might get pushed into the stream. And then each cell was kind of constructed separately. So we characterized the most contaminated material and put it in the cell. And we, once that was covered up, we dig another one. So we were kind of doing it incrementally. 2015 work took about 2 months. And then 2016 work took about 2.5 to 3 months. So this is definitely not a fast project for moving that amount of material.
who owned the property?
It was who owned the property was the question. The Forest Service. So it was doing work in conjunction with the GMUC. Linda Lanham was the on-scene coordinator that I worked with closely on this project, and that entire site was on forest, and it abutted White Pine, the town of White Pine property.
How many people live in White Pine?
Oh, that's a good question on full-time residents. I think it's probably around the order of 10 to 20, maybe more than that. That's probably about it.
More in the summer?
Yes, more in the summer. They don't plow the road fully to White Pine in the winter, so but it's accessible by snowmobile, and there's some backcountry skiing operations up there too.
Are you going to be monitoring the improvement of the health of the people that live there, or is that anything?
I don't think monitoring the health of the people. I don't think that was done initially in the observation by the EPA or the Forest Service for pre-project conditions. All right, thank you guys.